After retirement, what you really need is not a bunch of friends. It is the right people and the right rhythm of life. When shallow relationships naturally fade away, you will actually feel lighter as long as you hold on to a few meaningful connections and stay connected to yourself. Sounds like the exact opposite of everything you have ever been told, right? But here is the truth when you no longer have a title. When there are no benefits to offer, a lot of relationships that once seemed close suddenly go eerily quiet. Some people who used to call you a good friend now disappear without a trace. And then you realize maybe you do not need that many people like that in your life anymore. But this is not a sad story. On the contrary, it can be a beautiful beginning of freedom, of self-respect, and of a life where you no longer have to play a role for anyone. In this video, we are going to unpack all the emotions that hide behind a retiree's smile, from the shock of losing social connections, the emptiness of being forgotten, to the art of living alone without feeling lonely. Before we begin, drop a comment below with a positive affirmation, something like a personal commitment to attract good things into your life. For example, I am at peace even when I am by myself, or anything else that speaks from your heart. And do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss out on any topics that speak directly to your emotions and the realness of life after retirement. Together we are going to explore a new chapter, simple yet full of freedom. And then when we are calm enough to look back, a truth slowly reveals itself. The fewer people around us, the lighter our minds feel. Maybe retirement does not take friends away from us. It helps us see who our real friends actually are. When we were still working, it was hard to feel lonely. Every day at the office came with conversations, greetings, friendly pats on the back, and rushed coffee breaks in between meetings. We called them colleagues, but over time, many of them became friends. Even if all we did was share small talk or complain about a tough project together, those little things created a network of connections that felt genuinely close. We got used to having someone to talk to, someone to have lunch with, someone who remembered our birthday. Then retirement arrives. No more meetings, no more overflowing emails, no more being called into someone's office to chat for a bit. The calls and messages that used to come regularly begin to fade, and then stop. We start to realize that some of those connections were never built on real emotional bonds. They only existed because of shared interests. Without a job title, without influence, there is no one left asking, "How have you been lately?" That feeling, if we say it is not sad, we are probably lying. But if you reflect on it a little, you will see this is not necessarily a loss. It is a necessary filtering process that time and circumstances bring. Shallow relationships will fall away on their own. And what remains are the people who truly care about you, not because of your title, not because of your status, but because of who you really are. It might just be one or two people, or maybe no one at all, but even that can be enough to help you feel lighter at heart. Retirement is a chance to cleanse your life, not just your calendar, but also your relationships. Less noise, less flattery, fewer obligations. And in return, you gain freedom, sincerity, and peace. So why waste time mourning over friends who are only there because of the position you once held? And once you get used to that silence, you might suddenly realize some relationships are like clothes that once fit perfectly, but now feel oversized and no longer suit you. Some relationships after retirement are just like that favorite piece of clothing you once loved, once perfectly fitted, flattering, and made you feel confident every time you wore it. But as the years went by, your body changed, your life changed, and that piece of clothing, though still beautiful and full of memories, now feels loose, awkward. Wearing it no longer feels right. Sometimes it even makes you uncomfortable. It is no longer you. Friendships are the same way. Some connections used to make us feel like we belonged, like they were our anchor in the chaos of work and life. But after retirement, when the shared interests fade and conversations no longer flow, we try to keep those ties going simply out of habit, or because we are afraid of feeling left behind. We keep in touch, we show up to those awkward social gatherings, We force a smile during shallow chats, while deep down we know this just is not us anymore. The truth is, letting go of a relationship that no longer fits is not selfish. It is an act of self-love. It means you have grown enough to understand it is not that you changed or that someone betrayed you. It is simply that life has moved on, and what once fit you perfectly no longer does. And you deserve a new outfit, one that fits your current pace of life, light, comfortable, and effortless. A relationship that does not need too many words, but still feels warm. A friendship that does not need constant interaction, but still runs deep. Or sometimes no one at all, just you grounded and at peace. And that alone can be a beautiful joy to feel. And then at some point, you will begin to feel a quiet but undeniable emotion. You still living, still present, but it seems like the world around you has started to stop seeing you. When you were still working, you were someone, a title, a voice that mattered in meetings, someone others relied on, consulted, respected, because of the role you held. That little business card was not just contact info. It was a symbol of your value and influence. People called you by your title, smiled at you in the hallway, and even respected you without truly knowing who you were. But then the day you retired, all of that quietly disappeared. No one needed your approval anymore. No more meetings where you sat at the head of the table, no more emails just to ask what you think. And little by little, you start to feel invisible, not because anyone is ignoring you on purpose, but because no one seems to really notice your presence anymore. It is not loud, but it weighs heavy on the heart. It is an uncomfortable realization. It leads many to ask themselves, do I still matter? Did I really live all these years just to be forgotten like this? But the truth is, if you do not truly understand yourself, you will always tie your worth to how others see you. And when those eyes turn away, you will lose yourself. Accepting this feeling of invisibility does not mean you are no longer important. It is simply a sign that you have entered a new chapter, where your value no longer comes from a nameplate, but from inner awareness. Those who truly understand themselves do not need the spotlight to feel worthy. They look in the mirror and smile because they know it is how they live each day, how they keep their dignity, their conscience, and their peace that makes them truly valuable. And when the outside world begins to feel more distant, you return to the place that should feel most familiar, your family. But even in this warmest of places, you may find it takes more awareness than you expect. After retirement, the most noticeable change is simply presence. You are home more often, spending nearly the entire day with your spouse, something you may have longed for during all those busy years at work. But ironically, when it finally happens, being together all the time can sometimes lead to conflict. Small differences in daily routines, things you never paid attention to before, suddenly become clear. The way they leave things out of place, talk too much, play the TV too loud. From those little things, tension builds and you start to feel tired even inside your own home. The truth is, love is not fading. It is your personal space being invaded without anyone realizing it. Older adults often misunderstand. Living together does not mean doing everything together or being together every moment equals love. Real love means giving each other breathing room. It is knowing when to step back so the other person still has their own world. A happy couple in retirement is not one that clings to each other constantly, but one that respects each other's space and knows how to share silence without suffocating each other. The same goes for children and grandchildren. When work is no longer in the picture, many elders pour all their attention into their kids. Then come expectations, followed by disappointment. You hope to get phone calls, to be asked for advice, to be heard and followed. But then you realize they have their own lives, their own routines, their own worries, and they cannot always make you the center of it. And that hurts. But family bonds should not be built on expectations. If you keep demanding attention the way you want it, love can slowly turn into a burden. Letting go at the right moment is not the same as giving up. It is allowing the next generation to grow in their own way. As the elder, you can take a step back to preserve respect, to protect that bond from being stretched until it breaks. Family, when understood properly, is not a place where anyone controls anyone else. It is a space where everyone has the right to be themselves. Love does not mean interfering in everything. It means knowing when to show up and when to step aside so others can walk their path. When you are quiet enough to observe, open enough to be forgiving, you will realize the most precious thing in a family is not just physical closeness. It is the feeling of being loved for who you truly are. And beyond all these emotions, there is one very real issue that everyone eventually has to face: money. Because sometimes it is not love, but money that cracks everything apart. After retirement, money is still there, but its role should change. It should no longer be a tool to prove your worth or control others, especially within your own family. Many elders make the mistake of thinking that by holding on to money, they can hold on to their children. They use it as a leash, giving it to make others obey, keeping it to make others dependent, or subtly threatening that disobedience means no inheritance. But the truth is, money cannot keep love. In fact, it often causes division. The fights over inheritance after an elder passes are not because there was not enough money, but because it was held too tightly, divided too late, or split unfairly. While you are still alive, you have the chance to handle it wisely and fairly, not to repay anyone, but to show responsibility and integrity. A wise elder is not someone who saves every penny until their last breath. They know when to share, when to give, when to keep. They know which child needs help, so they help. Which child can stand on their own, they encourage independence. They do not pile everything into one place, nor do they hold on to it so tightly that they forget themselves. Most importantly, they keep enough to live comfortably, without asking, without relying, without being looked down upon. Financial independence is a rare and priceless form of freedom in old age. When you do not have to stretch out your hand to your children, you speak to them as an equal, with love and with respect. You do not need to throw money around to be loved, and you do not need to hoard money to be feared. You use it as a tool to serve peace, not to control anyone. And the most important thing, financial independence helps you keep your dignity. You do not need anyone's pity. You do not need attention out of obligation. You live by your values, not by your wallet. That is how a person of age lives with true character and earns the genuine respect of their children and grandchildren. And then, when you are no longer burdened by material things or emotional ties, you might start asking yourself, what should I do with the rest of my life? But living positively does not mean you have to start everything over again. Many people, as they enter old age, especially after retirement, feel like they are falling into some kind of void. No more work, no more deadlines, no more constant calls. And they begin to wonder, do I still have any value? Out of that emptiness, some try to fill the gap by chasing new accomplishments, forcing themselves to recreate past glory. They sign up for business courses, write books, start companies, or constantly post their busy schedules as a way to say to the world, I am still young, I can still do things. But you know what? You do not have to do that. No one needs you to become young again. And most importantly, you do not need to pressure yourself into being some kind of reborn version of your old self. Growing older is not a competition to see who is still the strongest or the most impressive. It is a chance to be your truest self without having to play any roles. This could be the time you learn something new, not for achievements, but simply because you enjoy it. Learn to cook a new dish just for yourself. Learn an instrument just to play quietly in the afternoon. Grow a few plants just to watch their leaves stretch toward the morning sun. Travel somewhere far away, not to post about it, not to tell anyone, just to let your soul breathe. Or simply sit and read a book, not needing praise for being productive, not needing recognition at all. And if you live alone, do not be afraid. Being alone is not always sad. Sometimes it is the most precious kind of peace you will ever find. When no one is interrupting you with noise and clutter, you finally have time to truly listen to yourself. There is a quiet kind of joy that only reveals itself in solitude when no one is around, when everything slows down and becomes gentle. Living positively does not mean being constantly busy or chasing something big. Sometimes, slowing down and living more deeply, that is the most meaningful way to live that aging can offer. And in the middle of those quiet moments, you might suddenly hear a voice inside you whisper, "Is this enough?" Because sometimes it is not lack that makes us feel unsatisfied, it is comparison. We are living in a time when you can see other people's success with just one tap on a screen. And even when you are already in your 60s or 70s, you will still come across all kinds of inspirational stories being shared everywhere. Someone wrote a book at 80, someone went back to college at almost 90, someone started a company with a head full of grey hair. These stories are not wrong. They can be beautiful, even extraordinary. But here is the thing, they do not represent the majority, and they should not become a standard that makes you feel like you have to do something grand when what you truly need is peace. Have you ever felt tired thinking, have I done enough? What else can I still do? If those questions come from genuine passion, then they are worth honoring. But if they come from pressure, the need to keep up or not fall behind, then they are just a quiet burden, quietly stealing away the peace that aging is meant to bring. No one needs you to be extraordinary. You do not need achievements to prove that your life is meaningful. You do not need degrees, awards, or a story for someone to write an article about. You just need clarity, good health, and a peaceful life each day, and that alone is more than what many others have. Because the truth is, at this age, just being able to wake up in the morning, walk on your own, pour yourself a warm cup of tea, and sit watching sunlight shine through the leaves outside your porch is already a miracle. What you are doing right now might seem small, but it carries the weight of a whole lifetime of learning, loving and understanding. You have lived through war, poverty, the changes of time, personal losses, and yet you are still here with a heart that still feels, still wants to share. Is that not already enough? Compare yourself less to others because you never know what they gave up to get what they are showing off. And compare yourself less to who you used to be because every chapter of life has its own beauty. Maybe you were once brilliant, powerful, admired. But today, you might be someone wise, grounded, and capable of cherishing the simplest things. That is another kind of success, quieter, but far more lasting. Growing old does not need to be dazzling. It just needs to be warm. It just needs to be enough. Enough peace to sleep soundly, enough lightness to forgive, enough strength to go for a walk, take a deep breath, and smile at what you still have. Do not turn aging into a new race. Let it be the most beautiful resting place, a moment to pause, not because you are tired, but because you have come far enough to see peace is the true pinnacle. In the end, living in old age is not about keeping as many people around as possible, but about holding on to peace in your soul. You do not need to prove anything, you do not need to please anyone, and you do not need to keep up with anyone. As long as each morning when you open your eyes, your heart feels light, you have enough strength to care for yourself, and enough stillness to enjoy the scent of hot tea, the sound of birds singing, or a windless afternoon on the porch, then that is enough. Happiness is not something to chase after. It is something we recognize once we have lived enough to slow down and truly appreciate. And perhaps the most beautiful moment is when you realize you do not need a crowd around you to feel loved. Because you, with a heart that has seen enough, with eyes that have witnessed so much, have already become a warm world of your own. If you have ever felt lonely, ever felt lost, or ever felt like you no longer mattered after retirement, leave a message below this video. It could be as simple as a sentence like, "I am at peace with myself," and that alone could be the start of a gentler new chapter. And who knows, someone else might read your words and feel comforted, Feel seen, feel less alone. Do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep sharing honest and meaningful conversations about aging, things that honestly no one ever really teaches us how to do well. Let us build a community together, not loud but warm, and understanding, a place where everyone can grow old but never feel left behind.